The late afternoon sun poured through the small window, painting golden streaks on the bamboo walls of the house. Huyen sat by the table, helping little Maya trace the letters of her name, while the smell of drying herbs and warm rice filled the air. Outside, Dee was fixing the wooden fence, his hands rough, his shirt damp with sweat. Everything seemed quiet, simple, peaceful. Then, suddenly, the phone rang. Dee wiped his hands on his pants and reached for the old phone lying on the table. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. For a second, he hesitated. Calls from unknown numbers rarely brought good news. But something inside urged him to answer. Hello. His voice was steady, cautious. Dee. The voice on the other end was official, polite, with a faint southern accent. This is Officer Min from the police station in the south. We believe we've found your missing motorbike. Dee froze. For a heartbeat, everything around him went silent. The sound of Maya reading, the gentle wind through the trees, even the cicadas outside. My motorbike, he repeated, as if afraid to believe his own ears. Yes, sir, the officer continued. A blue Honda, registered under your name. We've verified the serial number. It's been kept safely in our impound for some time. You'll need to come in person to complete the paperwork. Dee's voice trembled slightly. You're sure? It's really mine. Absolutely. We'll need you to bring your ID and ownership documents when you arrive. When the call ended, Dee just stood there, staring at the quiet phone in his hand. Then, slowly, a smile began to spread across his face. Not wide, but deep and warm. The kind of smile that carried both relief and disbelief. Huyen looked up from across the room, her eyes curious. Dee, what happened? Dee turned toward her, his eyes shining softly. They found it, Huyen. The motorbike. They found it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Huyen's face lit up, her smile gentle and bright, like morning sunlight after a storm. Really, oh, Dee, that's wonderful. Maya jumped from her seat, clapping her small hands. Uncle Dee, the blue motorbike. You'll ride it again. Dee laughed softly, the sound full of emotion. After months of waiting and searching, after so many disappointments, this small moment felt almost unreal. Outside, the wind rustled through the bamboo leaves. The day that had begun like any other suddenly felt different, as if life itself had decided to return something precious. Not just a motorbike, but a piece of hope they had once lost. The next morning, the air was cool and filled with the scent of wet earth after a night of light rain. Dee woke up early, long before sunrise. He packed a small bag with a few clothes, his ID, and the worn papers that proved the motorbike belonged to him. The old blue jacket he always wore hung neatly by the door, the same one Huyen had mended for him many times. Huyen was already in the kitchen, boiling water for tea. When Dee stepped in, she turned with a quiet smile. You couldn't sleep either, could you? Dee smiled back faintly. Not really. I kept thinking about that call. About the bike. It's strange, Huyen. I didn't expect to ever hear about it again. She poured him a cup of hot tea, her hands steady. Maybe it's fate, Dee. Sometimes, when we stop looking for something, that's when it finds its way back to us. Dee nodded, but his heart was heavy with more than gratitude. The motorbike was only part of what he had lost. That old machine had carried him through so many roads. The long nights searching for Huyen and Maya, the countless small villages, the dusty markets, the endless hopes. To get it back felt like reclaiming a forgotten part of himself. Maya appeared, still sleepy, rubbing her eyes. Uncle D, are you going far? Dee crouched down and smiled, brushing her hair gently. Just for a few days, little one. I have to go get something important. Bring back candy, she said, grinning, her missing tooth making her smile even sweeter. Huyen laughed softly, the sound tender and full of care. Be careful on the road, Dee. It's a long way to the south. Don't rush. Dee took a deep breath, looking at her for a long moment. The gentle lines on her face, the quiet strength in her eyes. I will, he said quietly. I'll be back soon. As he stepped out, the morning mist clung to the trees, and the first light of dawn touched the mountains. The road ahead stretched endlessly, winding down through valleys and fields of green. Dee tightened the strap on his shoulder and began to walk toward the bus station. Each step carried a mixture of hope and uncertainty. He didn't know what he might find, or who he might meet, but something deep inside told him this journey wasn't just about the motorbike. It was about fate, about unfinished stories waiting to unfold. The bus rolled slowly through winding mountain roads, carrying Dee farther and farther south. Outside the window, the mist lifted to reveal endless fields, quiet villages, and children waving as the bus passed by. Dee leaned his head against the glass, lost in thought. The call he had received the night before still echoed in his mind. The man on the phone had spoken with a low, steady voice. Mr. D, your blue motorbike. I believe I found it in a small village near Kendo. It looks old, but it still has your name scratched under the seat. The man on the phone had spoken with a low, steady voice. Mr. D, your blue motorbike. I believe I found it in a small village near Kendo. It looks old, but it still has your name scratched under the seat. Dee had felt his chest tighten at those words. He had lost that bike years ago, during the time he was desperately searching for Huyen and Maya. It wasn't just a vehicle. It carried the memories of their shared past, the roads they had taken together, and the promises that had been left behind. As the bus reached the lowlands, Dee stepped off at a small roadside stop. The air was warmer here, filled with the smell of ripe fruit and river water. He rented an old bicycle from a shop and began to ride toward the village mentioned in the call. The dirt path led through tall coconut trees, their shadows swaying gently. From afar, he could hear the sound of a temple bell and children laughing by the riverbank. Life here seemed peaceful, untouched by the noise of the city. When he finally arrived at the address, Dee saw an old wooden house with a faded blue gate. An old man sat on the porch, his gray hair glistening in the sunlight. Excuse me, Dee said softly. Are you the one who called me about the motorbike? The man looked up with a kind smile. Yes, that's me. You must be Dee. Come in, son. Dee followed him into the yard, and there, under a tree full of yellow blossoms, stood his old blue motorbike. Rust had covered most of its surface, but Dee recognized every scratch, every mark of time and memory. He touched the handlebar, and for a moment, he couldn't speak. The smell of oil and dust filled his nose, but in his heart, it was the scent of homecoming. The old man watched quietly. It was found near the river months ago, he said. A young man brought it here. Said he didn't know who it belonged to. He left without saying much. Dee looked up sharply. A young man. What did he look like? The old man thought for a moment. Tall, thin, with gentle eyes. He spoke politely, said his name was Adam. Dee froze. The sound of that name pierced through him like lightning. Adam, the same friend who had disappeared. The one he had been praying to see again. His hands trembled on the motorbike's seat. The realization struck him like a wave. Maybe fate hadn't brought him here for the motorbike at all. Maybe it had brought him here to find Adam. Dee stood motionless beside the motorbike, his heart pounding like the sound of rain on a tin roof. Adam, the name echoed in his chest, soft but powerful, like a voice calling from somewhere between memory and fate. The old man slowly walked over and handed Dee a cup of tea. He came by on a cloudy afternoon, the man said, his eyes distant as if searching his own memory. He looked tired, maybe from traveling. He told me he'd been wandering for a while. Said he was looking for someone, too. Dee's throat tightened. Did he say where he was going next? The old man shook his head gently. He mentioned something about heading to the riverside town near the ferry crossing. Said he might find work there. The riverside town. Dee remembered that place, a quiet little corner where fishermen gathered, and the smell of grilled corn filled the evening air. It was the same place he and Adam had once stopped to rest during their long search for Huyen and Maya. Dee ran his hand along the old bike's rusted frame, his fingers tracing the faint engraving beneath the seat. D.H. A small mark Huyen had once made, back when they were young and full of dreams. The letters were almost worn away, but seeing them now made his eyes sting with tears. He took a deep breath. "Uncle, thank you. You've helped me more than you know," he said sincerely. The old man smiled. "When you find him, tell him the world hasn't forgotten good men like him. He helped me fix my roof when the rain broke it. Didn't even ask for a coin." Dee nodded, deeply moved. That was Adam. Kind, humble, always helping others without expecting anything in return. As the afternoon sun slanted through the trees, Dee tightened the straps of his small bag and looked at the long road ahead. The wind carried the smell of grass and wet soil. Somewhere out there, near the river, Adam was living quietly, perhaps unaware that his old friend was once again following the same path they had walked years ago. Dee started the old motorbike. The engine coughed, sputtered, then finally came alive with a trembling hum. Dust rose behind him as he drove off toward the riverside town. Every turn of the wheel seemed to whisper, "Don't give up."
The road grew narrower, cutting through the golden rice fields. The setting sun painted everything in warm orange light, and in that light, Dee felt something shift inside him. Not just the ache of missing Adam, but also the quiet joy of being given a second chance.
Fate had already shown him the way once before, leading him back to Huyen and Maya. Maybe this time, it was guiding him again, toward his long-lost friend, Adam. And with that thought, Dee smiled faintly beneath the soft glow of dusk, his heart steady as the motorbike carried him forward, chasing the last light of day and the promise of reunion. The road to the riverside town was long and winding. Dee rode through the night, the hum of the motorbike mixing with the soft songs of crickets. The moonlight shone faintly on the wet road, and sometimes he could hear the gentle splash of frogs jumping into the rice fields. It reminded him of the old days, when he and Adam would ride together on a small motorbike, chasing hope through the countryside. By the time dawn broke, Dee finally saw the river glimmering in the distance. Thin smoke curled up from the small huts along the bank, and the smell of grilled fish filled the air. The riverside town was just waking up. He parked his motorbike near the pier and began asking around. "Excuse me," Dee said to a woman selling sticky rice. "Do you happen to know a man named Adam? He's tall, quiet, with kind eyes." The woman thought for a moment. "Ah, that sounds like the man who helps fix the boats by the river. He's been staying at the old shed near the ferry dock." Dee's heart skipped. "Thank you." He walked quickly toward the dock. The sound of wooden hammers echoed. Tock, tock, tock. And there, under the shade of a large bamboo tree, stood a man mending a small fishing boat. His back was broad, his movements steady. Even from afar, Dee recognized that posture, calm, patient, full of quiet strength. Adam, Dee called out, his voice trembling. The man looked up, startled. For a second, he blinked as if he couldn't believe what he saw. Then a wide smile spread across his face. Dee, he said softly, dropping his hammer. They walked toward each other, first slowly, then faster, until Dee reached him and pulled him into a tight embrace. Neither said anything for a long moment. Only the sound of the river flowed between them, gentle and endless. I thought I'd never see you again, Dee said, his voice shaking. Adam smiled faintly. I thought the same. But here we are. Seems like fate wasn't done with us yet. They sat down by the river, watching the sunlight dance on the water's surface. Adam poured Dee a cup of tea from a small pot. It was simple, warm, and fragrant, just like old times. I came back to look for my motorbike, Dee said, smiling. But I guess fate wanted me to find something more important. Adam laughed softly. Sometimes, what we think we've lost is just waiting for the right time to return. As the afternoon stretched on, they talked about everything. Huyen, Maya, lytutay, and the small house by the stream that once brought them all together. The sadness, the hardship, the little joys, all came back like gentle ripples across the river. When the sun began to set, painting the sky gold and pink, Dee looked at Adam and said, "Let's go home, my friend. There are people waiting for us." Adam nodded, his eyes bright with emotion. Yes, let's go home. And as the motorbike rumbled to life once more, the two men rode side by side down the narrow dirt road, their laughter blending with the wind, carrying with it the warmth of friendship, faith, and the quiet miracle of reunion.